Welcome back to the Teacher's AI Cafe. I'm Kane, a teacher and a parent who wants AI to give us back our time. I share practical classroom-tested AI strategies to cut down your workload, improve your feedback and reduce stress so you can get your evenings back and be more present with your friends and family. No jargon, just actionable steps. Grab your mug. Now let's get going. Welcome back to this week's AI update for educators. It's been a fairly big week. It's the 3rd of August. Another month has gone already. I think this is actually episode 101 or 102. I think my 100th episode was my update last week. Not the most exciting episode for the 100th, so I'll have to come up with something a little bit special, I reckon. Now, what's been happening last week? Now, the most important story I think that's come out in the last week, there's been a few different ones, is the story that AI platforms are actually chopping up old books. And as a history teacher, I find this really disturbing. And I understand you've got to digitize books, and I understand why they want to get the data because things are in books are important. But what I understand, for what I've seen the videos and the process, is simply the case that they're buying up books worldwide, initially English language books, and they're also getting rare old books, and some of them are actually quite rare and unique. Obviously, they want to get the data. Now, the problem I'm reading with this in itself is the fact that apparently the process is they're actually cutting off their spines. And I saw a video of this. They cut the spines, scan every page, and then they're destroying the originals to create training data for future AI models. So according to reports, this has included out-of-print, hard-to-find titles, prompting fears that important parts of our literary history could disappear with AI training data sets rather than remaining in library shelves, people's shelves, on bookshelves. Now, I have no issue of actually collecting data, and I think that's fine. And I really think them scanning old books that are out of print or rare is actually a really good thing. The issue I have is the destroying. Now, you think about the old prints, for example, if you get digitized versions on the British Library and that, they don't destroy the books when they do it. This is obviously the cheap mass production way of doing it. And as a history teacher, oh man, do I love books. We had a visitor to our house today, and they were saying how many books we've got. Because books are fantastic. You can touch them, you can flick through them. They're a completely different experience to reading things on the screen. And I think that's why you've got to have books in your house, because when we talk about history, I remember being a kid, and I would watch my own kids, is you get old history books, and you flick through, and when you're young, you're just looking at the pictures. But you can't do that on a computer screen. You can't just grab a shelf down, have a through the pictures, and over time you learn to read and you read the information that's around them. But it creates interest and curiosity about things of the world because you've got this visual thing that's easy to get to. When you're young, you can lie on the floor and look at it. Now, Anthropic was the main person they quoted in this article, and they said, Anthropic said, no, we don't buy from Zoom Books, there's Zoom Books, but that they didn't say they weren't doing it. They said they weren't buying it from this particular supplier that's buying up all these books around the world. So does it suggest that they're actually doing it, but they're just getting it from different suppliers? And I think this is going to be a big issue. Hopefully this process stops. Like I said, at the core of it, I don't mind them scanning out-of-print data and then making that data available. I do have a massive issue of them actually destroying the physical copies of these books, because once they're destroyed, especially without a print, they're gone forever. And over human history, we've lost so many written resources because of different disasters and things, and going all the way back to the Library of Alexandria, where it got burnt multiple times. We lost a huge amount of written history of humanity. And if they're just doing it for convenience, I think this is a big issue. I haven't heard if OpenAI is involved in that. If it is, but Anthropic, who stands itself out as the individual person, that individual company that does the right thing, they withdrew from the Defense Department because they didn't want to use their model for that. Turns around potentially doing this is not really a good look. And the second thing that's happened last week is Anthropic. Remember we talked about last week, OpenAI had a system testing got out. Anthropic have also had one, apparently it was loose, and hacked 3 different sites when they were doing their own testing. So like I said, they're looking at controlling these AI systems, but at the same time, they can't keep them contained within their, what we refer to as sandboxes, these self-contained environments. And that implies that these tools are more powerful or more capable of finding their way around systems than previously believed. Though apparently that's the reason why, was it Fable and Mythos version and the latest version of OpenAI were released to companies first so they could test their systems on that. So anyway, they're the two big dramas of the last week. There's talk in the US about trying to get the balance point legislation allowing for innovation at the same time having protection in there, which obviously they've got to compete with the Chinese models. Now, looking at terms of the Chinese models, I was reading an interesting article. We spoke last week. Yeah, Kimi has come out from Moonshot. Apparently, all good as Anthropic, but apparently it's very hard to get onto because it's always down or it's always offline. So there we go. Cheaper, but obviously not always available. Make of that as you wish. So what else has done? OpenAI they've given 100,000 academic researchers, which is obviously at tertiary level, access to ChatGPT Pro and 5.6 Sol through to 2027 for free. So the idea is you can add up to 4 collaborators into your environment. So that should be interesting to see how they collect that information and get it through. This is important, I guess, because we'll start to see AI becoming part of the mainstream research infrastructure and processes. University students will encounter more AI-supported research, though there's been a lot of AI-only papers being put into journals that needs to be done. Needs to be dealt with. Once again, humans are going to be in charge. What's Gemini Spark? So Gemini Spark is something that actually keeps working in the background. It's paid users, so you can get in India now if you're an educator in India. So what it can do is run tasks through a schedule, continue working through a device when it's inactive, use safe skills. So it's sort of that environment where Codex and Claude Code, get it the right way around, sit within that. You could use it, for example, do weekly curriculum updates, organize selected emails, monitor changes and plain documents, so on. So it's another tool. Anything happening in the world of Gemini? No. Notebook's still the same as last week. I'm still making videos. If you check out Banging History Stories, you can see that playing with Notebook LM to make different short videos, usually 3 to 5 minutes long about different historical topics. Now, the history is real. The videos aren't. They're all AI animated. Microsoft is trying to turn Copilot into a super app. Once again, I'm not a big user of Copilot. When I played with it in the department, I find it very frustrating. So the idea of Copilot, it's expected, what's changes to combine Microsoft Copilot, GitHub Copilot, co-work functions, and autopilot agents. And once again, people in the Microsoft environment at schools will get impacted by this as it comes through. For people running Windows, it's going to give more control over AI. Microsoft has now allows supported Copilot Plus users to remove the local image of generation AI component. This is important because most AI components are about adding features. Shows, I guess, when organizations have the right to remove things, and this is people like who bought things on Steam. Technically you buy it, but technically it's rented to you. They can take it off you, but they got to refund you. So the idea is that fact that if you embed and run a system that can take it off you is a bit of a concern for that. What else is happening in the world? Education story here. So in Connecticut, so more than 35 Connecticut school districts are now using Magic School. I played a bit with Magic School. So the New Haven, I was there last year visiting. I was staying in Groton Long Point, visiting rallies there. So we certainly went past New Haven more than once or twice, and I caught the train through there. Very nice part of the world. So the New Haven Public Schools have budgeted about $109,000 US for the platform. So what they're going to get out of this is more than 80 teacher tools, more than 50 student tools. And I don't know what they are because, like I said, I try to avoid third parties, so maybe I should start doing some reviews of them. Lesson planning, feedback, translation, customized chatbots. Apparently one of the reasons they went with Magic School out of other different platforms is because it can be translated into 98 different languages. I don't know how diverse that part of America is, to be honest. I know we've got lots of different languages at my school and schools nearby, somewhere up to 40 or 50 different languages that are available because we're such a high immigrant area. And why does this matter for us? I guess schools are moving from individual experimentation to system-wide adoption, and that way they can build some guardrails and things into it. Now, is Magic Schools the good one? How long is that project going to last? Is Magic School going to keep updating the system for what teachers need? Are they going to listen to the districts and customize it? What does that offering is we start, I guess all these teachers start using it, saying, oh, we wish it did this or that, or it doesn't do that very well. Is there going to be an improvement process? And that could be a good thing for Magic School if they take it on board and adjust it. And what else has actually happened in the last week? And Following up on that story we had from New York, where they're investing, was it New York? They're investing in a robot to go inside the classroom. Apparently it's from a company that makes realistic sex robots. So it's a pretty good looking robot. I saw a photo of it, but apparently it's a repurposed sex robot, and which the city of New York paid almost $500,000 for. Anyway, hopefully he doesn't give advice that's inappropriate for the classroom. I'll leave you on that lighter note. Look after yourself. Got any questions? Join the Facebook group. Join the mailing list there as well for the information. I'm going to post a question in the Facebook group of things you'd actually like me to cover in my podcast, particular things you want to learn more about. So we get a bit more very targeted for what my different listeners want. So until then, look after yourself and take care.